How could Tu Youyou deceive the Nobel Prize and the Lasker Foundation Award in Medicine? Lecture 5. The true Artemisinin was Huanghaosu, with the Latin name annua, which was obtained by Lord Youyang by using the Geissman method in April 1974. 2015 Nobel Prize in Medicine winner Tu Youyou was an academic cheater and a liar. She was not the essential contributor of 523 project to fund the new anti-malarial drug Artemisinin. That the Chinese Ministry of Health selected her as a Nobel Prize candidate was in an attempt to bring the best political propaganda for the Chinese traditional medicine. As a matter of fact, Tu Youyou had made the biggest academic cheating scandal in the world scientific history. In the last lecture, we proved that a crystal isolated by Tu Youyou team was not true Artemisinin because of cardiotoxicity and failed in 1973 clinical trial. Now we have a question. What was truly remarkable Artemisinin? Actually, the original name of Artemisinin was called Huanghaosu, not the current name Qinghaosu. Such name change was under the executive order signed by China Ministry of Health government in 1978 based on the request of Tu Youyou. Why to change the name? Because the minister wanted to propaganda the old Chinese traditional medicine, Qinghao, was so great. In 1978, Tu Youyou quibbled that Huanghaosu and Qinghaosu were the exact same drugs. Now, let's make a comparison. In Tu Youyou team's clinical trial in 1973, the total dosage for treating Vivax malaria was 3.5 grams, and the total dosage for treating falciparum malaria was 5 grams. However, we will see that the total dosage of using Huanghaosu for treating Vivax malaria was only 0.3 grams, and for treating falciparum malaria was only 0.5 grams. Such a comparison clearly proved that 90% of Tu Youyou's crystal Qinghaosu 2 was impure substances, including toxic substances. In previous lecture, we already mentioned that the cardiotoxicity of Tu Youyou team's isolated drug was because of the following two causes. Number 1. Impure raw salts. The Chinese medicinal Qinghao was the mixture of two different Artemisia plants. Number 2. Raw alkali treating method. The too strong 2% sodium hydroxide treating would generate toxicity. However, before 1973, with the exception of Lu Zeyuan of Yunnan team and Wei Zhenxing of Shandong team, no one in the 523 project had doubted the extraction method and source of Tu Youyou. The first person in 523 project suspected the Chinese medicinal Qinghao was Fu Liangshu. Mr. Fu was the chief medical officer in charge of 523 project of the Yunnan Military Branch District. On November 17, 1972, Fu attended a 523 project office branch leaders conference in Beijing. Tu Youyou made a presentation about her team's anti-malarial research works. However, Tu Youyou only lied that she cured all 30 malaria patients in the clinical trial and concealed 3 failed cases. Besides, Tu Youyou did not mention anything about her team's recent work, which was celebrating Crystal Huanghaosu 2 in this conference. During the time of the conference, Mr. Fu carefully read all Tu Youyou's experiment record documents, such as the neutral ether extracts from Qinghao, drug number 91, and the clinical trial results. Particularly, there was a pharmacology office's evaluation report to say that drug number 91 damaged the experiment dog's heart and kidney. Obviously, Tu Youyou had hidden this very important information in her presentation. Why was so toxic? Then Mr. Fu thought that Tu Youyou's extracting raw sauce medicinal Qinghao might not be a correct choice. After back to Yunnan in December 1972, Mr. Fu made the following speech in the 510 Project Branch Conference. Mr. Fu said, there are several dozens of compositia plants in Yunnan province. Why not to screen all of them? We might be able to find one plant that contains the strong anti-malarial ingredient. Eventually, this screening task was assigned to Lu Zeyuan, who was from Yunnan Institute of Material Medica. Obviously, Mr. Fu wanted to find the new anti-malarial drug beyond the scope of Chinese traditional medicinals. Mrs. Lu Zeyuan graduated from Beijing Medical University in 1960 because the university degree curriculum plan was changed from 4 years to 5 years. Lu would obtain more education in biology than Tu Youyou did. Tu Youyou also graduated from the same university before. However, because her father was a former KMT official, the enemy of Chinese Communist Party, she was banned to join the classified 523 project research works for a very long time. Somehow, in the end of 1972, Lu was passed the political background checking and allowed to join the 523 project. Lu Zeyuan immediately screened several compositia plants nearby, including Artemisia Artemisia Hans, whose Chinese name was Qinghao. However, this is a contradiction to Tu Youyou's report on March 8, 1972, because Tu Youyou said she got the anti-malarial ingredient from medicinal Qinghao. Therefore, Lu Zeyuan wrote a letter to Tu Youyou on January 16, 1973, asking a very important question. 你们用的青蒿原植物是什么? Which means, what was the original plant of Qinghao that you used for extraction? This later proved that Lu Zeyuan suspected Tu Youyou's raw sauce. Certainly, Tu Youyou cannot answer this question because she never went to countryside to collect medical herbs. In February 1973, Lu found an unknown suspected composite plant with a strange fragrance at Yunnan University. Then she collected, dried it, and cut into small pieces for extraction. Lu applied the standard oxalate extractor with 4 different solvents: ethanol, petroleum ether, and ethyl acetate sequentially. However, only the last 2 solvents extracted anti-malarial ingredient. Actually, Lu obtained something similar to Tu Youyou's sample 191, which is not only kill all parasites in blood, but also kill mouse too. In 1962, Professor Geissman published a book, Principles of Organic Chemistry. In this book, Dr. Geissman proposed a new technology procedure to separate the crystal of semitrophan lactone from compositia plant. Because Artemisinin has a semitrophan lactone structure, therefore, Geissman's method essentially paved the way to get Artemisinin crystal. Applied the Geissman method, Youyang quickly obtained the crystal in April 1973 and named as Huanghaosu temporarily because she did not know the name of the plant. In May 1973, Professor Wu Zhenyi from Institute of Botany, Chinese Academy of Science, appraised that the unknown plant was a variant of Artemisinin annua, with nickname Big Head Artemisinin annua because of bigger flowers. Derived from its Chinese name Huanghaosu, Lu Zhenyuan renamed the crystal as Huanghaosu. This historical fact told us before Huanghaosu was proved to be a strong anti-malarial new drug, the China Ministry of Health did not care its name at all. In May 1973, Huanghaosu reported to the 510 Street Project Office headquarters in Beijing that the Yunnan 520 Street team had isolated the anti-malarial crystal. Soon after, Tu Youyou knew this information too. At that time, Tu had a big trouble that her team's crystal Huanghaosu 2 was banned from entering the clinical trial due to cardiotoxicity assessment from pharmacology office. Because worried about Yunnan 510 Street teams might conduct a successful clinical trial before her team, Tu Youyou desperately wanted to go for clinical trial, even prefer to risk her and a colleague's life to take the potential toxic drug in purpose to overturn the cardiotoxicity assessment. However, Yunnan team did not go to the clinical trial in 1973. They tried to modify the Huanghaosu extraction and isolating process to be perfect. One, to collect herbals from walnuts for the extraction was only suitable for lab-scale experiment. To produce enough Huanghaosu for the clinical trial usage, the high quality and quantity Artemisia annual production region must be found. Actually, in whole China, only 3 regions of southern China have quality Artemisia annua that can be used to produce Artemisinin in larger scale. 2. Because of its explosivity, ether is not a suitable solvent for the bigger amount extraction. To produce enough Huanghaosu for the clinical trial usage, the ether solvent must be replaced. Through the investigation, Lu Zhenyuan found that the Sichuan Youyang could produce a huge amount of Artemisia annua. Furtherly, she found that the content of anti-malarial ingredient of Youyang's Artemisia annua is 10 times that of Yunnan herbal used recently. Moreover, she found the anti-malarial ingredient existing mostly in leaves. In June 1973, based on the principle of saturation, Lu and her colleagues completely redesigned the Huanghaosu producing process as shown below. The new design had two major changes. Number one, replace ether with number 120 gasoline for the safety concern. Number two, use leaves only for extraction, such that the Huanghaosu density can exceed the critical point of saturation and directly obtain crystal. This is Lu Ziyuan's gasoline solvent Huanghaosu producing flowchart. It was surprisingly simple. Actually, only one step could get a coarse crystal, and the second step just recrystallization. This method can produce very pure white needle Huanghaosu crystal. Actually, is Artemisinin crystal. This gasoline solvent method was very important because it built a solid foundation of automatic production line of Artemisinin for all current Chinese pharmaceutical factories. The Youyang's high-quality Artemisinin annua was a guarantee for the production of anti-malarial crystal by gasoline solvent method. As long as Youyang Artemisia annua is in hand, any regular solvent can successfully produce anti-malarial crystals. However, how could Lu discover the high-quality Youyang's Artemisia annua was completely relied on the Geissman method. Therefore, without a Geissman method, there would be no gasoline method and no Artemisinin either. On page 36 of Tu Youyou's book, Qinghao Anti-Malarial Research, we can read the producing process for neutral ether Qinghao extraction, which was exactly the sample 191. Then we use the red rectangle to highlight this part in the right picture. Now we turn to page 38 of this book. We can read the producing process for crystal Huanghaosu 2 from the neutral ether Qinghao extraction. Then we use the red rectangle to highlight this part in the right picture too. At last, we combine those two parts to make a following picture. This is the complete process that Tu Youyou how to make Huanghaosu 2 crystal from medicinal Qinghao. The whole process was extremely complicated. It cost too long time and too much human activities. It cost too much chemicals and too much money. Moreover, it was extremely dangerous because it ignited an explosive fire in 1972 and damaged people's health. Ironically, the last output was cardiotoxic. It was not Artemisinin at all. Professor Wei Zhenxing was in charge of the research of ingredient chemical analyzing for medicinals in Shandong Institute of Traditional Medicines since 1958. To make analyzing more accurate, he never used the commercial material as source. Wei Zhenxing repeated Tu Youyou's ether neutral extraction method in late 1972, but using the collected Artemisia annua. In November 1973, Wei Zhenxing successfully obtained pure anti-malarial crystal from Artemisinin annua collected from Shandong mountain region, but using acetone as solvent. He named the crystal as Huanghaosu. The producing process is below. This process is slightly complicated than the gasoline solvent method. This is because the Artemisinin annua collected in Shandong was not high quality as Youyang's. However, comparing to Tu Youyou's process, this process is still very simple. Professor Wei Zhenxin said his method can be used for the Artemisia annua that has lower content of anti-malarial ingredient. That's why he used leaves and stems together, such that could get more output of crystal. In their joint 2011 paper, Artemisinin Discovery from Chinese Herbal Garden, Dr. Miller and Su said, Tu's team struggled to obtain the high-quality crystal from the plant in the following months. Two other teams, using the information and methods she used, soon obtained pure crystal from Artemisinin annua. Here, Dr. Miller and Su made a big lie. It was the following sentence: struggled to obtain high-quality crystal. From the English dictionary, it means Tu Youyou eventually obtained the high-quality crystal despite the difficulty. However, we already knew that the crystal obtained by Tu Youyou's team was cardiotoxic and not high quality. Therefore, that was a lie. However, this paper had a Chinese version published in China at the same time. We copied the same part of material in Chinese in the following. We can see the word struggled was replaced by Chinese character 挫折 means failure. Therefore, Dr. Su said the following to the Chinese people. Although Tu Youyou's team failed to obtain the high-quality crystal, but the other two teams quickly obtained the pure crystal by using the method and information from Tu Youyou. Now we can see that Dr. Miller and Su said differently for the same thing in the same paper, but in different language. In the English version paper, they said that Tu Youyou obtained a high-quality crystal, but in Chinese version paper, they said Tu Youyou failed to get high-quality crystal. Why? This was because that Dr. Miller and Su had to deceive the judges of Lasker Foundation and the Nobel Prize that Tu's team indeed obtained high-quality Artemisinin crystal despite some difficulties. Actually, this was the pivotal point to guarantee Tu Youyou to win the Lasker Award and the Nobel Prize. However, facing the Chinese scientists, Dr. Miller and Su clearly knew they cannot say the same thing like that, because all 523 scientists already knew Tu Youyou team's crystal was toxic. Therefore, they changed their tone to emphasize that the two teams' method can be used by other teams to produce the Artemisinin crystal. In fact, this was very illogical. How could a failed method become correct when passed over to other users? There were big differences between Tu Youyou and other two teams' methods. Number one, Tu used commercial Qinghao for the extraction, but Lu and Wei used the collected Artemisia annua from wildness. In the Nobel speech, Tu Youyou clearly said that she used medicinal Qinghao, which was a mixture of two different Artemisia plants. But Dr. Miller and Su tried to cover that. Number two, both Lu and Wei directly separate crystal and without using Tu Youyou's solvent ether and alkali treatment. Number 3. Particularly, Liu applied the Geissman method for the crystal separation, which Tu Youyou did not understand at all. Therefore, it was baseless to say that Liu and we using Tu Youyou team's method to get the pure Artemisinin crystal. In 2015, Dr. Miller and Su made more lies in their joint paper, The Discovery of Artemisinin and the Nobel Prize in Medicine, published in Science China. In this time, Dr. Miller and Su no longer said that other two teams used Tu Youyou's method to get a crystal Artemisinin. Instead, Dr. Miller and Su said that Tu Youyou shares Artemisinin extract information with those two teams. They even said there were 2 letters sent to Tu Youyou's institute from those two teams can prove that. Now, let's look at those 2 letters. This is the first letter from Shandong team to Tu Youyou's institute. We translate the details to English. This letter only asked the detailed results of 1973 clinical trial and never asked anything about crystal extraction. This is the second letter from Yunnan team to Tu Youyou's institute. We also translate details to English. This letter also asks the general information of Tu Youyou's research work and never ask the crystal extraction. Those 2 letters cannot prove the key information sharing. Although Tu Youyou's team obtained the crystal in November 1973, but she would not put the key information for the public sharing before obtaining the successful clinical trial. However, her 1973 clinical trial was failed because of the cardiotoxicity of the crystal. Therefore, Tu Youyou had never reported the key information to produce a crystal until 1978. Liu and we obtained the crystal in April and November of 1973, respectively. Therefore, their achievements were independent of Tu Youyou's failed method. Dr. Miller and Su wanted to use these 2 letters to prove that Tu Youyou shared the key information of crystal extraction with Liu and we, but the content of the letters did not support that. Actually, Dr. Miller was fooled by Su because he cannot read handwriting Chinese, and so did all judges. We appeal the Lasker Foundation and Nobel Prize Committee to conduct a complete investigation on whether Dr. Miller and Su supplied the false information to judges of Lasker Award and Nobel Prize, such that they were misled that Tu Youyou's method could be used by other teams to produce the pure Artemisinin crystal, even she was failed. If so, please withdraw her Lasker Award and Nobel Prize as soon as possible. More Tu Youyou's cheating material will come later. Bye-bye.